With our LAstory.info, we've had some interviews of two serious candidates for Los Angeles mayor. Today we're going to have a little bit of a different take on possible candidate. This is a gentleman by the name of Robert Young. Not Marcus Welby, but the Robert Young, who was a 23-year motor officer with the Los Angeles Police Department, and a gentleman who's lived in this North Hollywood area most of his life and now lives out in the west part of our Los Angeles area. We're going to talk to him a little bit about his history. I call him the perfect candidate. Perfect candidate in the sense that he has quite an interesting background, which we're going to go into. Things he knows how to do, things he has done with his life. A most interesting gentleman, 65 years of age, just like me. And we're going to have a great time talking about our city and the 23 years he spent as a motor officer with the Los Angeles Police Department.
Well, my first year, Bobby Kennedy got shot and Martin Luther King got shot. So it was quite turbulent in America at that time. And my mother was concerned that I would join at that time, but I was interested. And I started out in patrol, and I eventually went to motors in 1971. We had a lot of demonstrations. People that were anti-government. I had people that didn't like me and people that loved me. People that I thought I represented authority and people that were very glad I was in their neighborhood at the time, protecting them. So you had both sides of the fence that you were serving in your community at the time. I eventually worked down in Watts in 1971. That time the Black Panthers were trying to shoot us and take us out.
Actually kill you?
Yes, actually, when I would arrive at Central Station, they had this police car that was involved in a Black Panther shootout. It was full of bullet holes, kind of like the Bonnie and Clyde car in Las Vegas. And that was my greeting for the day, to let you know what your evening might end up looking like. The difference is I wasn't in one of those cars. I was on a motorcycle, which quite concerned my mother at the time.
But you could move probably faster if the bullets were coming at you.
I could dive for the gutter pretty quick, yes.
So, Black Panthers, what your feelings then? You felt you made the right decision career-wise in joining the LAPD?
Yes, I went to college to be a coach, and when I saw the LAPD come on and quell a disturbance on campus because the classrooms were being lit on fire, I liked that. I felt like there was something I could do for the community that was in a positive nature, because I believed in our community, I believed in our government, I believed in the American way of life, and I felt like I wanted to be part of that. And I'll tell you what, it was like an epiphany for me. I really enjoyed it. It was a macho thing. I was around guys that were the same thing, went through the academy, had to do the running, the jumping, and all that stuff, and learn, gun takeaways, things that were kind of interesting to me, because I had a gun put in my face at a dairy that I worked here locally before I became a police officer, and I was quite interested in how to take a gun away from someone. I didn't feel so powerless anymore. And the police department was very good in teaching us how to survive on the streets, and I appreciated that. And you know what? They continued that education throughout my career. They always kept us upgraded as to what this society was coming at us with and how we needed to prevent that and save ourselves, and you, by the way.
Now, do you think, Mr. Young, that LAPD should be on the same level as the Chicago police, better? And do you have any thoughts about that? Were you in really as they call the blue, the specifics of the Los Angeles Police Department, really top-notch or average or where?
I respect all my brothers in blue throughout the country, and I've actually traveled the United States and been with different police departments, actually training them. After I retired, I was working for the credit card company. But what I've learned about the LAPD, they created new police work. They were in the forefront of new tactics and not doing things the old way. So it was always progressive, and it was always led to new areas of enforcement. And one of the things were the helicopters, the mounted unit, the dogs, all those things they were in the forefront of doing. And you know what? They're professional. They were proud. I was very proud to be associated with that.
And you were also on a horse.
Yes, I was.
Well, tell us about that, and how do you become a horseman with the LAPD?
Well, in those days, in the 80s, there was not a mounted unit. And one of the local disc jockeys who took a liking to me gave me his horse and saddle. So we had a way of presenting being a mounted unit with the Los Angeles Police Department by using our own horses, our own vehicles, and show them how we could we could use that to benefit the city. One of the things, and we did that. And eventually, Amundsen was generous enough to donate the property, and now the training facility is over in Griffith Park on the other side of the river.
Right.
It's still in existence today. That was created. One of the benefits was that as I was on the skirmish lines, knowing and seeing people having to push people away to open the street up or whatever because it was an illegal assembly. I felt concerned for the people on the front lines because some of them didn't want to be there, but yet we still had to move them out of the way. When I became a mounted officer, I saw what that dilemma was. The people in the back didn't know what was going on in the front, and as we were pushing them, the people in the back weren't giving way, and it became a jam. As a mounted officer, what I saw was the whole thing. We could give our commands from high up. The people
Look
in the
down on all the
see what was going on. The people in the back got the message as well as the people in the front, and the streets were cleared within minutes, and very few people got hurt doing that. So I really liked the new addition of the mounted unit and how it performed and how it also protected people on the streets of LA. It was, people think that it's an aggressive thing that policemen do, which it is, but it can be done safely, and the mounted unit afforded us that opportunity to do that. It's a great feature of the LAPD.
Now, we're looking at you as I call the perfect candidate. One of the things I know about you, and I'd like you to tell our viewers, this log cabin house you built out in there, how did that happen? Is it actually a log cabin house?
Yes.
I mean, with logs are cut and put in like a log cabin.
Yes.
So how do you do that?
I was on vacation and saw Build Your Own Log Home, and I said, whoa, I think I'll do that. I didn't know it might be attached to my Swedish origin. The Swedes brought some logs to America, and I was passionate about it. I love America. I love early America. I love the East Coast America. I love the tradition of America, just the history of it I love. So I found some land, and it took me 5 years to make my dream come true, and I finally got the land, the permits, and built my log home in the Santa Monica Mountains, and it was kind of like my retreat. I come to this city, I work, and I was able to go home and relax.
You took your motorbike home and...
At that time, you were allowed to take your bike within Los Angeles County. Yes, I did take it home with me.
So you would pull up in your uniform to your log cabin?
Yes, I would.
And what did people think about that?
Well, I didn't have too many neighbors at that time.
Okay, you didn't have to worry about it.
Didn't have to worry. And I never did have to worry about that, to be honest with you.
But let me ask you, I wouldn't know where to start building a house on a log cabin. I mean, I understand basic construction, but did it scare you? Did you think you really were going to get this done? A log cabin out in the middle of Los Angeles County in the Santa Monicas?
Yes, I like to live my dreams, and in a dream is possible if you prepare yourself for that dream. And I studied, and I researched it, and I learned what I had to do. And I was also doing room additions on the side at the time, which eventually led to me getting my contractor's license, which I got after I built the log home, by the way. But I love construction. I love building. I'm a hands-on person, and that's one of the reasons why I stayed on the street for 23 years. I like to be hands-on. I'm not necessarily an administrator in the aspect that I know I wanted to manage people. What I wanted to do is one-on-one, face-to-face, and see how we can make things better one-on-one. And I do that in my personal life, and I did that in my professional life.
You and I have talked a little bit about the politics of Los Angeles. Do you have to be a multimillionaire or somebody that raises all this amount of money to be a viable candidate? What do you think about just a person running, maybe having public financing, if he or she were to get a certain number of signatures to be a candidate? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's how we were founded, and it's gone away from that. And I just, the last local election and for the state, and even locally, it's become a money game, and that's kind of scary to, I think, to men like you and me and people that live in the community, that it seems like money and power seems to be dictating the path of our future, and I'm quite concerned about that. And it's your opinion and my opinion seems to get lost in that shuffle. And I kind of like the opportunity you're raising it for me, because you're allowing me to say things that's always been in my heart. But who gets an audience to do this?
That's right.
You and I have lost that opportunity. But thank you for that.
Although the changes now with the internet, with YouTube, which this will be on, I'm looking, and I haven't talked to you specifically, but as I call you the perfect candidate, I think we're going to get some reaction from people that see this, and we'll send emails going, well, who is that guy? And they want to know a little bit more about this Robert Young, Marcus Welby, and all the connotation of a doctor and somebody that fixes people. But what do you think of the political system besides the money thing? What's driving it now? Are we having good decisions with the city of LA as far as the deficit? What would you do if you were mayor today, dealing with a $400 million deficit?
Well, there's certain things we can fix, and there's certain things we can't fix. And one of the things is in America and locally, there's a power out there that's not responding to what the American people want. Example would be our borders have not been shut down, but the people would like that. One of the problems here in Los Angeles is that there's people that are living here free. They're getting free education, free medical services. And you know what? I don't have a problem with the people that are here in Los Angeles. I have a problem with you and me that are paying taxes supporting that. I've always had to pay my way. My grandparents were immigrants. They paved their way. They learned the language and they participated. I would like to find and investigate how we could get money not out of you and me that are already paying our taxes. I think we need to leave us alone. I would like to get money out of the people that have a roof over their heads here in Los Angeles and find a way to get them to contribute to the streets and the schools and the medical services that we afford them, and the police and the fire services that we offer them.
Okay, we have hundreds of thousands of people driving on the street without a license, without insurance, because they're illegal immigrants. Would that be another funding mechanism if we were to make it legal for those people to have a driver's license and require them to have insurance like everybody else?
Well, there are laws that require that. It's just that they're slipping under the net on that. One of the things that I would propose, and this is kind of a new thought of mine. I was wondering how could we get money out of people that aren't paying their fair wages? If you live in a house here, whether it's rented or you own it, there's a tax bill. And if you're in a house, then you need to pay some sort of taxes or fees to just live here. And I think if we made, let's say, building and safety, instead of making it so hard to build in Los Angeles, since I'm a contractor, let's make those guys that are proven they know how to build homes or buildings or commercials, let them make it a little bit easier for them, and maybe take some of the staff of building and safety and find out who's living in these homes and are they paying their fair wages to live here. Maybe we need to create a little enforcement policy with building and safety to see who's living under these roofs and are they paying their fair wages. That's just an idea I thought that maybe someone could look into.
I'm going to mention now a gentleman who I know is a friend of yours, and he was in the Los Angeles Police Department. He was a motor officer, Dennis Zine. Now, he was elected to the City Council, 3rd District. Is it outside the realm of any possibility for another motor officer to be considered to be mayor? I'm asking you think Dennis Zine's done a pretty good job?
Yes, and I'll tell you how that started. Dennis said he's going to run. He called some of his buddies,
for city council,
motor cops, yes. We campaigned for him in his neighborhood, not knowing where that would go. One man at a time, two men at a time. I like the exponential forces of people working together one-on-one. There's a quote in a story that I've been reading with my wife that if you have one horse to pull a wagon, you have 1 horsepower. If you have 2 horses to pull a wagon, you have 10 horsepower. Now, I can't scientifically prove that to you, but what it's telling me is that when 2 or more people get together, things start happening. And and that's what Dennis Zine did. He was there at the right time in the right place. And I believe that Dennis would serve his community, and I believe he has. He and I have, had some things that we've sat down in his chambers and talked about. I wish he would have made a little bit different decision than he did, but we're still friends. And you know what? We everybody has to do what they believe their platform is about.
Right. And tell me about from rec and parks. You love this park in this area. Is our city putting enough resources in the future citizens, the kids, the families for these kind of parks for them to grow up in and enjoy, from your vantage point?
Well, I actually was, yes, they have been. And what I was actually part of that in creating outside of this community, in the Santa Monica Mountains. They started the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. I was one of the founding members of that. I was the president of the first park, and the goal was to have the inner city kids, i.e. Watts, be able to experience what it's like outside of the asphalt jungle and see that they're surrounded by mountains, beauty, beaches, paths. They had free volunteers cutting pathways in the Santa Monica Mountains for these kids to enjoy, and they actually created the buses to get transported there. So,
and these kids were brought out to the Santa Monicas, which many
Yes.
of them never saw in their lives.
it's like us going to Europe or Africa,
China.
China, whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.